Hi everyone, now we are at tip number 8. We're very nearly getting to number 10. And I have entitled this one, It's Best to Connect. Now, a lot of my friends who know that I homeschool have said to me, I don't think I could ever homeschool. I don't think I have the patience for it. My child just doesn't seem to enjoy learning from me. We always end up at loggerheads and we don't get anywhere. And I would say it's best to connect. There are two things that I apply that really help me to connect with my children. And number one, it's praising on purpose. I've seen so many memes and really funny videos.
וכל היום, איך הילד מרגיש? איך שצייר ציור? איך הילד מרגיש? הוא כל היום בפלאפון, טוב לו? ישנים טוב, אוכלים, לא מפסיקים לאכול. איך הוא מרגיש? שאלו אותי איך אני מרגישה. קורסת. אני עוברת מילד לילד. הנה מדעים, הנה מתמטיקה. הנה, חלס, גם איפה אני יודעת את כל הדברים האלה? עכשיו הילדים שלנו יעלו עלינו כמה אנחנו סתומים. זה לא לעניין, באמת. אם לא נמות מהקורונה, נמות מלמידה מרחוק. זהו, פרקתי. בבקשה, להוריד קצב, תניחו להם.
When that happens, children kind of just shut down if the communication or the tone of the communication that's happening during the learning process is constantly negative. And so you have to really praise on purpose, and you have to be very deliberate in your mind that you're going to encourage them and be positive and speak positively over them and tell them that is fantastic, you're doing really well, brilliant, you know, and encourage them with that and bring that energy and that vibe to the learning table. That is going to really inspire them to keep going. But if everything that comes out of your mouth is a criticism and it's negative and it's nagging, they'll shut down and they just will not be interested. So it's something that you've got to have it in your mind that, okay, right, I've kind of, oh gosh, I've been a bit like, so okay, let me just make sure that, you know, the next thing that comes out of my mouth is positive, it's encouraging, it is praise. I think it's really important also when it comes to connecting to kind of assess when your child is getting tired. Gauge what it is that perhaps is too difficult for them. Children can kind of sense when you don't really believe in them and their abilities. So stretch and challenge them, absolutely, especially if they've got a slight lazy streak, but don't make it too hard. If they've already lost without even starting, they're going to be completely deflated and lose morale entirely. Make sure that you're pitching the work at the right level, you know, and at the same time you assess and you gauge when it's too much, when they're getting tired. And I can usually tell when they're getting tired when they start to become easily distracted and they lose focus. You know, the phones, the tablets, the computers, they do affect attention span negatively. Do exercises with your children to try and stretch their attention span, for example, getting them to complete puzzles. And even if it's the case whereby they haven't completed the puzzle, they've given up, leaving it and saying, okay, we're going to leave it and come back to it, but you're not going to pack away that puzzle until it's completed, even if it takes us a week. It's the same with word searches that I do with my children. That's just a personal thing for me. I really want to teach my children not to give up and to stick at things until completion. I think it's a good character trait. Another way that I think you can really connect with your children is by touching. My eldest son goes to chess club, and the gentleman who runs it is a man called Richard, and he's brilliant, and he's really read a lot regarding child development, and he's a great person to talk to. And one of the tips that he gave me, especially when it comes to boys, is to touch them. Because there are times when I'm learning with the children and with my boys especially, and I can feel like I'm losing them, and they start to be a bit silly, they start daydreaming a little bit, and they start to kind of lose focus. And I find that just by touching them on the shoulder or on the arm and saying their name calmly and gently and waiting for them to regain eye contact with me and then going over the work instructions again, that really does help me in connecting with them, and it really does help with the flow of the work. So yeah, those are just some really simple tips that I have really benefited from when it comes to connecting with my children. So yes, it's best to connect, and that's tip number 8. Is it? No, 6, 7. So yes, it's best to connect, and that's tip number 8. Tip number 9, I have called level it up, and I'll explain what that means. In our learning room, we have a round table with 4 chairs. We are all seated around the table when we're learning. I make sure in the work that I have prepared for them to do that there are different levels of work. Let's take my middle son. Some of his pieces of work will require that he has to form sentences. He's 5, and so he'll need support with that. For those pieces of work, I know that he'll need my one-to-one attention, but there will also be pieces of work intermixed. For example, tracing or copying sentences. Those pieces of work I know that he can do independently. So I deliberately put those pieces of work in there so that whilst he's doing the independent pieces, I can assist my other children with what they're doing.
You smart. You very smart.
And I do that with all of them. So I have various levels of work. If a child is on a piece of work and they need my help, they have to learn to wait. Just like it would be in a classroom. With a teacher, you are one person. And that's actually a line that my children know very well. So yeah, I hope that helps. Right, so we've come to the end. Thank you so much for sticking with me. I'm really hoping that you found this useful. Thank you for keeping up with my different hairstyles. But we've come to the end of my top 10 tips, and tip number 10 is, drum roll please, I've forgotten. Oh yeah, that's it. And tip number 10 is don't give yourself homework. As I've mentioned previously, I was a teacher for 8 years. One of the things that we learned as teachers through experience and through making many mistakes was not to give ourselves homework. So whilst the lesson was going on, you would get on with your marking. It's really important that you do that when it comes to homeschooling. Whilst we're already at the table, whilst we're in that flow, they're getting on with work, I'm able to see, okay, this is what you've been able to do today. This is what I'm going to make sure that I get sorted for you tomorrow, because I think it would lead on nicely from what you're doing now. And I would be preparing that work whilst we're learning, as soon as I get the opportunity to, so that by the time that we've actually finished, I already have planned and prepared what it is that we're doing tomorrow. Once, one of my children has completed a piece of work, I would give them the next piece of work, and whilst they're doing that piece of work, provided none of my other children need my assistance, I'm going through the work, I'm marking it, I'm seeing what they've done correctly, what mistakes they've made, and I'm giving them the feedback there and then. What you don't want to do is end up in the position of giving yourself homework. If you are doing a project with your children, doing an activity that requires a lot of practical work and there are many resources, it may well be the case that you do need to spend some time set aside to prepare for that. But you just try to help yourself. Try not to give yourself too much homework, especially on a regular basis. And I just feel that when it comes to homeschooling, especially when your children are quite young, like mine are, homeschooling in of itself is challenging because you don't get a break from your children. And so you just want to do things that make your life that bit easier. So those are my top 10 tips. I hope that you have found them helpful. I've provided the links to various websites that your children can go on and do learning work independently, where you can access resources and where you can also access YouTube videos for your children to watch. And I just want to thank you for sticking with me, and all the best for this season. And it may well be the case that some of you, after having experienced homeschooling for the COVID-19 pandemic, you choose to actually stick with it. And if you do, you'll love it. No, stick with it. And if you do, welcome. So yeah, do take care of yourselves, especially during this time. And thank you once again.